Good afternoon. I'm Ken Krasnow, Vice President of Omnichannel Marketing at Henkel. Henkel is an 143-year-old, $20 billion global consumer packaged goods company with many brands that you know, love, and use every day across laundry, home care, beauty, and adhesives categories. Our top brands include All, Snuggle, Purex, Persil, Dial, Right Guard, and Loctite. We've got many other brands as well. My group consists of all the consumer touch points, including media, digital marketing, shopper marketing, merchandising, national promotions, packaging design, and the consumer call center. The perfect set of groups to be talking to you today about omni-channel marketing and digital and analytics strategy. And so I'm very happy today to have the opportunity to walk through the Henkel digital analytics and technology strategy. As the Vice President of Omnichannel Marketing at Henkel, there are two things that are of paramount importance to me. Number one is proximity, and that means getting closer to the consumer, but also breaking down those internal silos so that internal teams can be closer. And that's both physical proximity as well as mental proximity. Now, physical proximity is tough for all of us these days. The mental proximity, not so much. Now, my entire team is on the same mission, and that's to collect data at every single turn and touch point for richer insights and better business outcomes. Now, the second thing that's really important to me is evolution, right? If we're not evolving, we're standing still, we're probably rotting, and just waiting to get picked off. So from a marketing perspective, how do we think about, all the fundamental change that's going on right now, and how are we evolving what marketing has always been about, which is art and science, right? Today, there's just so much technological change. I mean, what was science fiction yesterday is here today in products and services that we couldn't imagine living without. So we really need to think through how we're evolving these two core aspects of the marketing discipline. In the past, the art piece was about telling our brand stories in 30 or 60 seconds and basically barging into consumers' lives. Today, the art is about having a big brand idea that can be woven into people's lives more naturally. An idea that has a story arc that aligns with the consumer path to purchase, a story that's told through a content strategy across multiple channels, where omni-channel orchestration is critically important, as is having a very clear data analytics and technology strategy. Ultimately, I think there's no truer words than the ones that Craig Davis said, the former chief creative officer at JWT, where he said, we need to stop interrupting what people are interested in and start being what people are interested in. And I think, a good data strategy is really a key enabler to unearthing the rich insights to understand not only who our high value audiences are and more about them, but what they're really interested in so that we can develop our own unique content niches. From a science perspective, well, today it's all about tracking what people do, say, and feel in the real world versus solely relying on focus groups. It's about capturing data at every turn and leveraging machine learning and predictive modeling as well as real or near-time optimizations. Now, Henkel is certainly evolving, and Henkel's new operating framework puts digital at the heart of everything that we do. Our digital goals are to drive efficiency across the value chain through continuous optimization of business processes and IT systems, and to build a direct relationship with individuals, consumers. To do this, we need to expand our value proposition beyond the core product features and benefits. This requires, once again, a solid strategy in order to get a grasp on what higher level consumer issues are and which ones we have the authority to address in an effort to build trust and loyalty. And building trust and loyalty has never been more challenging than right now, because consumer trust as well as confidence is at an all-time low. And it's at an all-time low across the board, whether you're talking about trust in our government, our communities, our corporations, and even our brands. All of this trust has taken quite a nosedive most recently. So it's really important that brands today are reliable beacons of promise. Not only does the brand purpose need to resonate and be clear, but the products and services must be dependable. The content has to be useful, and the experiences we create need to be frictionless. The brand story is carried through the big ideas that not only reach a lot of people, but also precisely reach defined groups. Now that's a lot of work for marketing teams, but fortunately, there's a new constellation in the sky. Can you see it? It's right there. Look hard. It's there in the right, kind of coming into view. There it is. It's the confluence of data, content, and delivery, all brought together within a technology stack that enables better decisions and business outcomes. For us, the ideal technology is a consumer data platform with lots of good first-party data that also happens to be connected to a demand-side platform to drive really high match rates and help us reach the people that are most important to growing our business. And although good data is really, really important, it's not the end goal. It's an enabler to surface lots of important things like high-value audiences and to get those insights, to build those great ideas and that corresponding content that we spoke a little bit about. And all of this is done in pursuit of really one thing today, and that's to build relationships. In the past, we may have been in the idea business. I'd argue that we're not in the idea business as marketers anymore. We're in the relationship business. Ideas are critically important to building those relationships and solving consumer problems, a number of consumer problems. But ultimately, it's about building relationships that are built on trust and authenticity, that foster a recursive nature, really driving loyalty. Now, a vast study revealed that 73% of consumers wouldn't care if brands disappeared from their lives. So building these strong recursive relationships is super important today. And a good data and analytics and technology strategy can certainly help, because digital is a persistent layer of everyone's lives. There's tons of data available to marketers out there to better understand consumers. And that data includes, web analytics and also digital analytics, as well as marketing analytics and consumer analytics. There's so much information out there that we can glean to enable us to do lots of really, really cool things, like segmenting our consumers and prioritizing them based on engagement scores and consumer lifetime value. Feeding that data can help us unearth insights to feed our communication, our innovation strategy. We can also do journey mapping and attribution, prediction, creating new business models. All of this stuff can be done. Bringing all of this data together should ultimately culminate in identity resolution, combining online and offline data to reveal the digital, device, and terrestrial characteristics of individuals. To get here, we need to draw people deeper and deeper into our brand stories. We need to transform the value exchange through inbound marketing that gives something useful to people in exchange for the permission to connect with them on a regular basis. The value exchange is nothing short of data gold. In exchange for great content that people anticipate, subscribe to, and maybe even pay for, consumers are willing to give us something extremely valuable, and that's their personal identifiable information in the form of their name, their address, their email, their device ID when they download an app, and things like that. To mine this gold, marketers really need to be on their A game throughout the entire buyer life cycle. Now, the three stages of the buyer life cycle that are important to growth are experience, exposure, and activation. Each of these stages has important implications for how well a brand grows now and for the future. In a recent Kantar study, a small group of brands, roughly 4% of the total data set, overperformed at each stage, and as a result, they grew by 46% over 3 years. Brand growth relies on exposure. Exposure is that mental availability and that physical distribution. Underperformance at exposure cannot be compensated by overperformance at other stages of the buyer life cycle. And when looking at Kantar's cross-media database globally, Kantar found some really clear results in terms of what are the key levers on paid media that drive greater brand exposure. Quality of creative is the single largest driver of brand growth in an advertiser's toolkit. This explains the growth behind brand exposure being so important. The most valuable and fastest growing brands are seen to be meaningful and different. Significantly more growth is seen to come from those brands that are meaningfully different and have great advertising. Those brands grew by over 230% over an 11-year period, according to Kantar. Now, media synergies drives another 9%, and reach is the second most important driver, followed by frequency. So at the end of the day, creative is king, and we've seen this not only from Kantar studies, but also from Nielsen and other leading research companies. But what makes great creative, and how can data analytics and a technology strategy help with that? Great creative starts from a big idea based on strong data-driven consumer insights that underlines the brand clarity and purpose. That is also based on strong data driven by transactional, behavioral, and attitudinal consumer insights that we glean from multiple data sources, structured data, unstructured data, that are coming in from all points of the consumer journey. The creative idea must land the brand benefit, translating this into distinctive and entertaining content that powerfully expresses something relevant in a distinct and emotionally engaging way. All of this can be tested and optimized with data, analytics, and a technology learning agenda. So by now you know that data is super important. In fact, some are saying that data is the new battlefield for CPG. Data allows us to know our customers, our consumers more deeply and develop better marketing, particularly creative. First-party data gives us a unique competitive advantage by knowing our consumers better and being able to target them in more relevant ways. And the more first-party data we have, the less reliant we are on the kind of global giants that sometimes own that consumer relationship where we really would like to instead. And achieving the right balance of reach and relevance requires really rich data. Now, every touch point provides an opportunity to capture data and glean insights and improve interactions. So one might think that, you know what, a data strategy, could basically be, hey, just collect everything and then analyze the information to see what pops up. Now, this approach is often very inefficient due to the inability to focus on key insights. Instead, it's best to consider the business objectives first and craft use cases carefully that are tailored to meet those objectives. Identifying opportunity spaces will help to understand which areas are key to optimize first and which data sets should be collected to achieve the defined business objectives. For example, if you want to understand how your marketing channels interact and build on a consumer's path to purchase, it's important that you include data on all interactions, both online and offline, across devices, and capture on-site browsing as well. Another way to begin to develop a data strategy is by asking good questions. This, I think, is a little bit better than the previous approach. So some good questions can be, how can we attract more high value consumers? How can we increase the value and loyalty of those consumers? How can we increase retention? Where does the consumer journey break down? Where are we losing people? Now, what we did at Henkel, because we want to bring everybody along, is we first defined what a data strategy is so that our stakeholders all were on the same page. So for us, a data strategy is a systematic approach to collecting, combining, securing, analyzing, and actioning different data sets to provide new and valuable insights that lead to better business outcomes, including increased acquisition, retention, upselling, and cross-selling. Beyond identifying what a data strategy is, we wanted to make it really clear what our purpose was. And we built this with a cross-functional team so that multiple stakeholder groups had a say. For us, our vision is to develop a 360 view of each customer so that a segment of one can be created and brand equity can be built in a personal way. That's where we want to get to. Our mission is to create a competitive advantage by empowering teams and individuals to make decisions from behavioral data driven insights and intelligence. That's where we are today. And we also have some principles. We want to engage with purpose, clarity, and alignment. We want to start small and get early wins. And we want to move fast with the data we have and then build from there. Now, when building a data strategy, this is, once again, a cross-functional project, which can include people from supply chain, sales, brand marketing, agency partners as well. So not only is it important to clarify what a strategy is and what your vision and mission is with all of these stakeholders, it's also to make sure that we're all understanding what different terms mean. So creating a lexicon and sharing the definitions of the various terms that we use every day as we're talking about our data and technology strategy was absolutely key for us. Another important thing is to talk about the technology ecosystem so that everybody has an understanding of what the core elements are and how they interact with each other. So for us, we have our data stack consists of a data lake, which houses both structured and unstructured data coming in from IoT devices, websites, mobile apps, social media, and corporate applications. We also have a consumer identity and access management platform, and this is a repository for all known data, including personally identifiable information. Remember that marketing gold. The CIAM information is pushed to a content management system where rules for specific creative messages or journeys can be associated with specific data within the CIAM system. And our consumer data platform organizes and appends consumer data from the CIAM media, and website interactions. The CDP, or the consumer data platform, pushes information to our CRM platform where journeys and activations are set up, executed, and ultimately analyzed. Now, another important part to building a data strategy with this cross-functional team is to have a brainstorm where everyone is getting together and talking about, the core components of a data strategy and brainstorming to ensure that nothing gets missed. And this is an example of what we surfaced. So we included the core components being data inputs, data outputs, the governance process, the tools and technologies we would need, as well as the visualization that we would need to have to ensure that we were able to read, understand, and action the data as quickly and as cleanly as possible. And you can see some of the things on the screen here that were key considerations for us in our data analytic and technology strategy. Ultimately, everybody needs to understand that there needs to be a process to how the data gets actioned. First, you need to understand your data inputs. Based on your use cases, what are the data sets that you will need? That needs to be developed in advance of beginning the work. Once the data sets are identified, you need to connect that disparate data, and that needs to go into some repository, be it a data hub, a data lake, a CDP, a DMP, what have you. Typically then, we'll need to clean some of that data up, particularly your own first-party data. Could come from an email list, a CRM program, what have you. We'll want to clean that data. We'll want to enrich that data, building content affinity, behavioral scoring, doing some modeling. Additionally, from there, we're going to want to organize that data. Really important to do that. And then it's the orchestration of the data. And ultimately, we want to understand what are the outputs? What are we looking to achieve? For us, it's very important that we have a crystal clear view of our consumer profiles. And that ultimately, not only are we creating consumer segments, but we're creating really rich personas that change over time based on new learnings that we glean from the data. For us, our data analytic and technology strategy is very much a crawl, walk, run. So while when we put the strategy together, we definitely identify where we ultimately want to be so that we can start building and collecting data for the future. But we also remember we need those early wins. So crawling is really important. For us, crawling was all about, collecting enough first-party data to bring the consumer into view. And then you want to start walking and building those consumer relationships, right? By creating a content strategy that feeds the marketing mix. And that content strategy comes from the learnings that we glean from the transactional, behavioral, and attitudinal data that we collect. And ultimately, it's about managing those relationships managing the relationships for the recursiveness, the loyalty that we ultimately want. Our first use case, as I said before, was to bring the consumer into view, to reveal insights into the different types of customers that we have and the growth targets that we want, and to understand the best ways to approach them. What we did was we built audiences and we scored them, based on our brand priorities. Clustering analysis, and in this stage, clustering analysis is performed by algorithms which can find segments and patterns that would otherwise remain hidden. When using self-learning algorithms, segmentation can be improved. While doing the segmentation, it learns about the segmentation it creates. This can be used to drive personalization, including sequential messaging across devices. Another use case for us was to reveal both the online and offline interests of people so that we could really tailor the message to different user groups. So that not only identifying the user group is important, but identifying which messages will resonate best is important as well. And we brought in lots of interesting data, not only store level data, but also point of interest data that revealed many different attributes around different consumer clusters that lived in various geographies. And we were able to get a pretty good idea of what our target market was interested in based on all of this data, which we received at the zip code and the block group level. This enabled us to personalize creative and deliver bespoke creative to different high-value audiences for us, basically framing the same product, in this case, the dial product, in different ways to garner attention and deeper levels of cognition from our cohort groups. Lastly, in the crawl stage, real and near-time optimization, establishing effective communication frequency levels, prioritizing channels, all in real time. It's important to improve campaign impact by optimizing audiences, creative channels, and partners during the campaign flight. And to do this, we had to focus on fewer, bigger campaigns so that optimization could occur in the first place. You can't really optimize a 4-week or 6-week program. You need a much larger program. So this really helped us just to focus a little bit more on fewer, bigger, better. Now, as I said before, the core piece of technology for us is that CDP, the consumer data platform. This is where we bring in all kinds of great data that I was referring to. We have our first party data. We have our second party data, which could come from our partner who has a ton of first party data because of various businesses that they're involved in. Third party cookie data or transactional purchase-based targeting data, super helpful. And all of this data feeds into this CDP where we can organize it and we can analyze it, and then we can push it out for activation through a connected demand side platform, or push it to social media partners or what have you. So ultimately, we want to move to a centralized approach that enables omni-channel orchestration, unifying the customer data across the organization. So moving from data living in all these different silos to data living in one place. And we believe that we know this gives us a really good view of the consumer. If we start out with our own seed audience data, our own first party data, the things that we can see, and we add it into the CDP, we get to see a lot more data by bumping our data up against a variety of different data sets. And ultimately, this is the path that we believe that will lead us to a more person-centric approach to marketing. So I want to thank you very much. I hope that this was helpful, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Wow, Ken, that was great. Thank you very much. For our attendees, please note the question Q&A module down on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We really welcome all your questions because we would love to stimulate the conversation beyond Ken's presentation to questions you have about Ken's journey in this space. And to that end, we'll see those questions on the screen once they start to populate. But Ken, we'll start off with a couple of questions here that have been loaded in. Do you have any tips for making data analysis simple and digestible for multiple decision makers who may not want to go deep in data?
Yeah, this is to make it as simple as possible. You may want to find a managed service provider. So whether that's your DMP or your CDP, it's going to be a lot more complex if you're trying to make sense out of a whole bunch of data that you're just not prepared to really deal with. Having a managed service is, I think, then extremely important, and that's really what we've used to really help us move along in our data maturity.
It really sounds like you guys have come a long way. Talk about the journey a little bit, and what are the most challenging aspects that you ran into while creating a data and analytics technology strategy?
Yeah, I think the first part of the journey was really bringing the rest of the organization along and ensuring that everybody was on the same page with the importance of data as a corporate asset. So we had to make it abundantly clear to people that may not work with digital media data on a day-to-day basis, but we had to make it really clear as to why investing in the resources to really build out a data strategy are important. So clarifying, potential use cases and the data inputs and outputs that were needed and expected was really critical. I think, one of the kind of biggest challenges is picking the right partners. We are to build all of this on our own. It really wasn't something that we were looking to do, so we needed to really outsource and find a whole new set of data, analytic, and technology partners. That was a pretty big challenge. I think there are industry resources, whether that may be from A or from Gartner or Forrester, that can really help get a toehold into the players that are out there in the marketplace and provide some perspective on the pros and cons of each one. But nothing really replaces kind of rolling up your sleeves and taking a whole bunch of meetings and really analyzing the different offerings and comparing them to one another. I think one of the biggest things for us was the client service piece, making sure that we were working with partners that have really good client service. We were not at the kind of data maturity level where we could just buy into a SaaS kind of platform and just run. We had to make sure that we were, really had a good, solid team supporting us and our use cases.
And here's an interesting one. Can you address your impression of the value equation using first versus third-party data?
Oh, well, yeah, very simply. We were able to draw, well, let's see. Yes, from a sales lift perspective, we've seen, exponential lift when we use first-party data and we model that data against really good data sets. So we see an exponential lift versus using third-party data. Although some third-party data is very effective, particularly the transactional data that comes from syndicated partners like Nielsen and IRI. So that's very much a part of our data strategy is, buying these purchase-based target audiences and deploying those. We've seen a greater than 2 times sales lift using that purchase-based third-party data versus more traditional, targeting, whether it's contextual or some other method. So that's super, super helpful, and that will be part of our strategy until we really build up that first-party data store to a degree that we just don't need third-party data anymore. We're not there yet, but we're making nice progress.
So, okay, you've come a long way, but what's your vision for Henkel and the data strategy going forward? And is there anything that you see that you hope to achieve in the next coming 12, 24 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really ultimately about relationships, as I was saying. And today we know that the experience it matters tremendously and probably is the biggest differentiator for brands because there's so many brands out there that, quite frankly, are fantastic. I mean, can you remember the last time that you had a bad brand experience? I mean, from a product features and benefits perspective, I mean, maybe the last bad brand experience I had was, I went to one of these budget haircut places maybe about 10, 15 years ago, and that was a nightmare. But beyond that, it's hard for me to recall, a bad brand experience from a product feature and benefit perspective. And I think that may be what kind of drives a lot of switching and the lack of loyalty that we ultimately would like. So I think the big differentiator is around the experiences that you can create, expanding the value proposition to provide, content that is inspirational, educational, may have some entertainment value or some tremendous utility. So, for us, the real kind of goal ultimately is to build these relationships by providing value beyond the core features and benefits of our products. One key piece of that is going to be an increasingly deeper understanding of who our consumer audience is, and getting to this identity resolution, right, where we can build a segment of one. That really is the ultimate goal, where we can get into this one-to-one personal relationship with people where they are opting in and allowing us to have an ongoing dialogue with them. And then we can tailor the experience for them. So when they come to our website, it looks different for them than it may for somebody else. We may, be able to provide them with recommendations based on their interests. And I think, providing them with a frictionless experience once they leave the website and they interact with our brands across a host of channels, how do we orchestrate those channels so that it's just simple and frictionless for them every time they engage with us?
Well, that's great. Thank you, Ken. This is Ken Krasnow with Henkel. We thank him for his time and his presentation. And for all of you attending, stay tuned for more great content.